Hello and welcome to Thought for the Day from St Peter's, Bexhill. I hope you've enjoyed the stories from the Bible that I've been reading. You may have noticed that I said several times that they raise lots of issues, because they do. Not least, I expect you've asked the question, and probably more than once, is it true? Did it happen? That's very important, but in fact, the two questions are not necessarily the same thing. The Bible is an amazing book written over hundreds of years by dozens of different writers. Some we know, some we can surmise, some we don't. And this is the important bit. It is full of different sorts of writing. The posh word is genre. There are poems, letters, lists, grumbles, prophecies, dreams, stories of things that happened, and stories that are stories. The problem is that the Bible usually doesn't tell us which is which. It's left to us to work things out, which actually is good. We are left to work things out for ourselves. By the time we get to the New Testament, things are getting easier, as the writers are really wanting to tell us what happened, wanting to convince us that the events of Jesus' life really happened and he really is who they say he is. This is the important bit. But in the Old Testament, things get very complicated very quickly. We need to remember that a lot of the Old Testament was compiled when the Israelites were in exile, dispersed around surrounding empires. They were slaves. It was put together to try to answer the question, if we follow the one God, how come we are in such a bad state? The writers and compilers looked back at their history very critically, looking for their own failings, the reasons that God might have let this happen, as well as looking for scraps of hope that it wouldn't last forever. And they found both. And so the original hearers, it was always much more meant to be heard than read, would not so much ask the question, did this happen, as ask, what does this tell us about God? That was the important question. Our question was way down the list. And even then, when we read the original stories, so much detail is left out. It is storytelling of the most concentrated sort. A further complication is that we read it in translation, of course. Time and again, I want to shout, yes, but what actually happened? So the stories I have read in these videos are retellings, versions that try to show how each one makes sense within itself and how they all join together to tell the overarching story, the story of God's love for the world, despite our constant messing it up to the best of our abilities. Put those together, it makes for some quite funny stories. I remember John Bell, who's one of the leaders of the Iona community, doing a Thought for the Day on Radio 4 and talking about the Adam and Eve story and saying that the truth of the story may not be so much in if it happened as that it keeps on happening. We keep on betraying each other. We keep on not doing the right thing. We keep on letting God down. And God keeps on loving us. I hope this comes across in the stories. The retellings I use are actually aimed at children, but I think they are far too good to be left with children, so I hope we enjoy them as well. So as you read or listen, do ask yourself, what does this tell me about God? And what does this tell me about people? So if it's all right with you, and by popular demand, well, one person mentioned it, I'd like to read a few more stories over the coming weeks before perhaps we move on to the New Testament when things, as I say, become a bit easier. We're going quite a way back, so they have to fit in with the stories we've already had. But we'll start with Abraham next time. I look forward to seeing you then. Amen.